All right, so Friday, May 28th is about to be a very big day content-wise for MLB The Show 21. On Friday, the Team Affinity Season 2 will launch, along with MLB The Show teasing that there's going to be a big collection that is coming out as well. So today, I just wanted to go over what we know so far. By the time Friday comes, everything will be out. We'll be able to see it. But I wanted to put something out to kind of give you a gauge of where you might want to start with this entire thing. So from what we've been told and what we've gathered so far, Season 2 is going to work pretty much the same way that Season 1 did. However, Season 1 of Team Affinity is not attached to Season 2. Now, what I mean by that is that if you haven't completed Season 1 yet, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to complete it. You can now continue on with Season 2 without having to get Season 1 done. And it's probably going to work, in a similar way where we're going to have a showdown that we can go to get the vouchers. You're going to be able to do exchanges. There's probably going to be missions. I'm guessing it's going to be structured kind of in the same exact way that Season 1 was. Maybe they changed up a little bit depending on feedback that they got from Season 1. We'll see. But for Season 2, a large amount of diversity is coming into the game. I have a feeling that once Season 2 kicks off, we're going to see a ton of different lineups from here moving forward. The reason for this is they are mixing in future stars and also team legends. So each team will receive one or the other. It'll be bracketed into, AL West, AL Central, AL East, NL. All of it. So I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown of each card for each division that we know of so far, and maybe give you an idea of maybe what division you want to go for first. So first up, we have the AL West. And we'll kick off the AL West starting with Oakland future star shortstop Robert Puason. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm probably wrong because I'm terrible with pronunciations. But for this card, we have a switch-hitting 92 overall, essentially infielder. He can play shortstop, second base, third base. He'll be able to play diamond at shortstop, and once you level him up through parallel, he'll also be diamond at second base and third base, even with the hit to fielding, reaction, and accuracy for playing a secondary position. But his fielding is so good that if you're looking for a diamond infielder, somebody who can play multiple positions, kind of like a Nico Goodrum in a way, then this is the person that you're going to want to go for. Great contact, decent power as well. You're going to face a lot more righties and lefties, so might be able to hit you a couple yaks too. He'll play all over the infield, and he'll give you diamond animations no matter where you play him there. The second one we have is 2005 20-win Roy Oswalt. Now, with these cards, they don't show us the attributes that they're going to give us, but we can go through a baseball reference for the season and maybe get an idea of what we could potentially get for this Roy Oswalt. So, in 2005, Roy Oswalt finished an All-Star, fourth in Cy Young. He had a 2.94 ERA. He led the league in starts. He went 20-12, pretty good. 241 innings pitched, so he's probably going to have some decent stamina. He had a very mediocre strikeout per 9 rate, though, at 6.9. So we're probably going to be seeing him somewhere in, I would guess, the 80s to 90s in K per 9. Walks per 9 were low, 1.8, so he's probably going to have some pretty good control. And he had a decent whip coming in at a 1.2 as well. So his hit per 9s might actually be okay, too. Now, because it's a milestone card, 96 overall, he's probably going to be boosted a little bit to, show the fact that he had 20 wins this season. So expect that. And according to Fangraphs, he pitched a fastball, slider, cutter, curveball, changeup. So that's more than likely going to be his pitch repertoire coming out of this card as well. Velocity wasn't quite there on the fastball, but he did throw a curveball at 70 miles an hour. So that dip in speed, 93 mile an hour fastball to a 70 mile an hour curveball, could come in very handy, especially pitching at the higher ranks in ranked seasons. And finally, we have the Sam Huff card. Catcher, secondary first base, 93 overall, absolute stud. So I've been a big proponent of using the Salvador Perez. I think he's a great card. He's also a card that you can get for free. Depending on what type of swing Sam Huff has, this card could be absolutely glitchy. Great contact, great power, and fields catcher very well. Has a good arm, has good blocking, reaction. This could be a really good card. Probably going to be one of the first cards I'm going to go after I maybe try to discover a couple of cards. The Sam Huff might be the one after that. Especially since we don't get too many catchers in the game, so getting a decent catcher this early goes a long ways. Next up, we have the AL Central, what we have so far. And the AL Central currently is a doozy. And first up, we have the hurler and starting pitcher card, Garrett Crochet. So right off the get-go, you're going to see two things really stand out, and that's 99 break, 99 velocity. Probably going to have outlier. So we're going to be looking at 102 mile an hour, lefty, hurler. Good slider, good break on the slider as well, and I'm guessing good break on the changeup and two-seamer too. But this card also has very good per nines, 102 K per nine and 97 hits per nine. This is probably going to be a top-of-the-line arm in a lot of people's rotations, purely due to the fact that having a guy with outlier in the starting rotation goes a long, long way. You drop off an 87 mile an hour, 99 break slider into the mix, and that's a whole nother ballgame. So Garrett Crochet, big card to probably get early to add into your rotation somewhere. Next up, we have first base, second half, 2002, Jim Thome. So again, this is another legend that was revealed through SDS. We don't have the attributes, but I just want you to listen to these stats that second half Jim Thome had. So, in the second half of the season, Thome batted .338. He had a .481 OBP. He slugged .773. He had an OPS of .1254. .1254. He drew 60 walks, had 60 strikeouts, slammed 26 homers, and 58 RBIs. He even mixed in 10 doubles and a triple. Absolute unit. Now, the thing with Thome, though, is going to be he didn't quite bat too well against lefties. He batted .245. He only had 12 homers, 32 ribbies. A lot of his damage came against righties, so he's probably going to be a pretty big split righty to lefty. He's probably going to have insane righty numbers, decent lefty numbers, but still could work his way into a lot of people's lineups or even their bench. Because Thome's swing is beautiful. So be on the lookout. Jim Thome, second half. This card could be absolutely phenomenal. Next up is a card I think that people are sleeping on a little bit, and that is 2000 second half Royals Johnny Damon. You have somebody who's a high contact hitter, another outfielder, which is, definitely something that kind of sucks because we already have a ton of outfielders, but he could slot into a lot of people's lineups. And looking over his second half, he had an absolutely monster second half. 386 batting average. 386. OBP of 413. He had an OPS almost at 1,000. It was 997, which is also phenomenal. He had 8 homers, 52 ribbies, also 23 stolen bases. This year alone, he had 46 stolen bases. So he's probably going to be fast, great on the base paths, plus fielder as well. Home runs are a little low, but he is going to hit for a large amount of contact, probably 110, 115 contact. And not only for righties, not only for lefties, for both. Because this year, he actually batted against righties and lefties, 316 against righties, 357 against lefties for the entire year. So we could be seeing a very, very high contact with a little bit of pop. He did hit 16 home runs this year, so we could see maybe some 60, 70 power from both sides. You add in the speed, you add in the fielding. This card, I think it could get slept on a little bit, kind of like how Nico Goodrum, I think, was slept on too. And he turned into probably my favorite 42 series card. So keep an eye out for Johnny Damon. And that's all we have for the Central so far. I think that people are going to be going for the Central pretty early just for the Garrett Crochet, just because that card is probably going to be extremely glitchy. It's definitely a card that I suggest you go for early on. Next up, we have the AL East, and we are going to start with what I think might be probably one of the actual glitchiest cards that we're going to get during the TA2, and that is 1928 postseason Lou Gehrig. Now, Lou Gehrig, great player in his own right, usually gets great cards no matter what, but I just want you to listen to Lou Gehrig's 1928 postseason. So in 1928, 4 games that Gehrig had at the plate, he had 17 plate appearances, 6 hits, 6 walks, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs. He batted .545, had an OBP of .706, slugged .1727, and had an OPS of .2433. If that doesn't make you kind of double take at this card, I don't know what will. My man had 6 hits, and 4 of them were for home runs. Now, it could be another card that is split heavily to right-handed pitching, as he did only bat .276 against lefties, but he did still hit for some pop, so we'll have to wait and see what we get. But this could be a card that we get that's a 125-125 against righties, which not only is huge in lineups, but could be spectacular for a card on the bench to be a pinch hitter for you. Probably going to be another card that I get fairly early. I'll look over all the attributes as is when they come out Friday, but this could be a good one to maybe target early as well. Next up, we have another shortstop, corner infielder, Jordan Groshans, Toronto Blue Jays. Another spectacular Future Stars card. I mean, almost all of these cards are loaded in their own right. This one gives you high contact, great power, and a very, very good fielder as well, with some decent speed. So if you're looking for an infielder with a little bit more pop, you know, maybe this card takes the place of Ernie. As the Ernie card's a little bit slower, this Groshans might actually take its place. We'll have to test it out and see what we get. So you have your pick. Do you want Jordan, a little bit better of a bat, not as great fielding, but still good? Or do you want Poissons, that's how you pronounce his name, who's good contact guy, not a whole lot of power, but a phenomenal fielder and has more secondary positions as well? Have a pick for what you want. And last up, I think we have, personally, probably the weakest card that we have gotten so far, and that's Shane McClanahan of the Rays. Now, in his own right, decent speed, good drop off on the curveball to 84 miles an hour, has decent per nines as well, but I think that the other pitchers that we have gotten so far, makes this card a little bit irrelevant, unless you're like a Rays fan or a McClanahan fan. This was probably one that I'll skip. This will be one that will kind of be just put off towards the end. I complete everything. I completed all of TA1. I'm going to do the same with TA2. So this will probably be one of the last cards that I get, as I just feel like there's other pitchers that are more deserving for me to get first over McClanahan. And that is the AL East. So let's move on now to the NL. So starting with the NL West, we have another legend, and that is 1963 All-Star Willie Mays. So in 1963, Willie Mays had a great season. He batted .314, he had a .380 OBP, 38 homers, 103 ribbies, was a plus defender, had 8 stolen bases, not a whole lot, but could still have a decent amount of speed. He hit well against righties, he hit well against lefties, definitely had more pop against righties with 26 home runs compared to 12, but could still see a decent splits going into the NL West Team Affinity Season 2. Also on Baseball Reference, it says that he played 1 inning of shortstop. I think that for SDS to put a secondary in, you have to play, I don't remember if it's a game or if it's a set percentage of games there, but that'd be kind of cool to have Willie as a shortstop secondary position. With these All-Star cards, I'm not 100% sure how they weight them, too, because if they go by the first half, leading up to him being an All-Star, his first half wasn't as good. He batted .271, had 16 homers and 41 ribbies. Second half was definitely better. Batted .362, 27 walks, barely struck out at 30 times, had 6 triples and 22 home runs. So I'm not sure how they weight these cards per se, if they take both into account for the entire year, just a 1963 year, decent speed, plus fielder, more than likely a good arm, and he's going to have decent splits against both sides with a little bit more pop against righties. So I'm a big fan of Willie Mays cards. I'm a big fan of his swing. So this may be a card that I definitely try out. Whether that's going to be early remains to be seen. I'll have to look at the attributes because at the end of the day, I am a sucker for building the best team. But this could be one that I target early. Next up, we have a 2006 Cy Young Brandon Webb starting pitcher. This could be another card for pitchers that might be put towards the wayside for me. A big reason for that is looking over the Fangraphs baseball pitch repertoire that Brandon Webb had in 2006. He had a fastball for an average velocity of 88 miles an hour. He had a slider that was hardly ever thrown, but still thrown, so they're probably going to give him a slider. A curveball at 74, and a changeup for an average velocity of 79.5. So just looking over just his pitch repertoire here, an 88 mile an hour fastball, not that great. And then having 3 pitches all within like 6 mile an hour difference between them could get you into some trouble with Brandon Webb. Again, it's very dependent on his per nines, because even somebody like Greg Maddux, who pitches very slow, is absolutely phenomenal just because you can dot it and put it wherever you'd want. So, and that might be the thing that saves this card. He had pretty pedestrian strikeouts per 9. He had 6.8 strikeouts per 9, so he's probably going to have a pretty low K per 9, but a 1.9 walk per 9, which is very good, which means that those control numbers could be up, which may make him a viable option. He also had a 1.132 whip, 8.3 hits per 9, so could have some decent hits per 9 as well when it comes to this card. I'm going to guess probably in the 90s somewhere will be his hits per 9. His walks per 9 and his control is probably going to be mid to high 90s, which, again, could lead to him being viable. I guess the big thing is what velocities they do give him, if they match, Fangraphs or something else, and how much break each of those have. But this is definitely one that is wait and see. He had a solid year, just don't know if this card is going to be viable, at least in my rotation, with all of the other pitchers that are available so far in the game. That's actually it for the NL West. So we are going to move on now to the NL Central. And first up, we have Joe Torre. Now, this is a third baseman Joe Torre. And in 1971, the position that Joe Torre didn't play any games at is catcher. So don't expect this card to have a catcher secondary. It'll only be listed as a third baseman. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad card, though. That's for sure. While it might not have the greatest of defense at third base, still be decent. I'm guessing probably around a gold. Maybe a low diamond. But one thing that Joe Torre did do in the 1971 season was beat the absolute piss out of the baseball. For the entire year, Joe Torre batted .363, had a .421 OBP with an OPS of .976. He hit 24 homers, 137 RBIs, hardly struck out 70 times, and drew 63 walks as well. Had 34 doubles, so I'm guessing he's probably going to be hitting for gap power. He hit righties a lot better, hitting 19 homers with 103 ribbies against righties for a .356 batting average. So he's probably going to have a little bit more power against righties. My guess probably in the 80s or 90s, but the contact is going to be completely wild. Probably another card that's going to be like a 110 plus. Now, while he might not have the power against lefties, he's absolutely still going to have the contact against lefties, because while he only hit 5 home runs against lefties, he batted .376. So his contact's going to be even better against lefties. So righties is probably going to be, I'm guessing, probably a 100 to 110 contact with a little bit more power, probably in the 80s and 90s. And then it's going to be like a 115 plus against lefties, with his power probably dipping down into the 70s, but still have the ability to definitely hit some home runs. So this card could be absolutely phenomenal to have early. And if you're looking for a third baseman, could be a card that you should target early as well. Now, I've never been a huge fan of Joe Torre's swing, but I feel like this year, with all of the changes and the fluidity that they've added to a lot of the players' swings, this Joe Torre could probably be an absolute beast at corner infield for you. So definitely one that I would think about targeting early, especially if you're looking for a third baseman to use. Next up is Prime Mark Prior. Now, when they announced this card, I was actually surprised when I was looking at his baseball reference. I'm like, wow, I didn't know that Mark Prior only played 5 years of professional baseball. That's actually kind of insane. But He did. Only 5 years of baseball for Mark Pryor. Prime card usually takes like the prime years of that player. So looking over it, we're probably going to have a card that has elite strikeouts per 9, great hits per 9, maybe lacking in stamina. Lacking the stamina will definitely hurt in the control factor as well. But I've always been a fan of the delivery, and I think Mark Pryor in this card will be perfectly fine. Looking over Fangraphs, in his prime, he was pitching about 93 mile an hour fastball, had a plus slider at 80 miles an hour, a curveball at 79, which is a good split to have, slider curveball to be that close. And his changeup was usually around a 85 mile an hour changeup, which is also good to have that fastball and that changeup a little bit similar. That way, when it comes out of the hand, you might not be able to, or people who you're playing against might not be able to pick up on it as good and may swing over the top of changeups. So, depending on what they do for prime years, this Mark Pryor card could be very, very good. Next up, we have another shortstop, Bryce Strang. Another card that has high contact and is also a plus fielder. That's lefty, so if you don't want switch, you don't want righty, you get a lefty as well. Because of the other two offerings that are offered for future stars at shortstop, I do think that this is probably going to be another one that I might leave to the wayside. Sometimes, though, these cards, they may not look the best, but sometimes their swings are just glitchy and the card plays above their stats. So we'll have to wait and see. I'll absolutely test it out, but it may be a card that kind of just gets pushed back to the end. Next up, we have another catcher, 1979 second half, Johnny Bench. So Johnny Bench is one of the cards that I do well with that everybody else hates. That's how it's been in prior years. I don't know what it is. I just do well with his swing. So this could be a card built for me. I'm going to have some options at catcher. That's for sure. Johnny Bench always plays plus defensively. So expect great blocking, great arm, great accuracy, great reaction. Not going to have the speed more than likely. And looking over the second half stats, will probably be a good batter as well. Batted .312, had a .392 OBP, .976 OPS. He hit 15 homers in the second half, had 46 ribbies, only 26 strikeouts and 28 walks, and even added 10 doubles. Pretty even splits, righties versus lefties for average and for power. So be expecting, I would say, probably just a very, across the board, 80, 90 contact, 90 power for lefties, for righties, power, everything, just right across the board. He's probably going to be one of those cards, but he's going to have easily diamond fielding and be a diamond catcher with probably good pop times. So another option at catcher, especially if you are looking for a catcher, this Johnny Bench might slot the role pretty good. And finally, we have the NL East. And first up, we have Edward Cabrera. Sinker, four-seam pitcher, good per nines, good break, good velocity, especially if he gets outlier on the sinker. You drop that down to a 81 mile an hour curveball. This card could be very good. I've thoroughly enjoyed the sinker four seam, good a plus changeup. I've thoroughly enjoyed that mix of pitches, as I just feel that the pitch movement being increased across all rankings plays very well for every pitcher. And if you add in a slider, depending on what the break is on the slider and the curveball, this could be a very, very good option to kind of take the place of, maybe another TA1 card that you had in the rotation. Edward Cabrera could come in and maybe fill that gap. So overall good card, definitely want to keep an eye on. And finally, of the cards that have been announced so far, here is another card that is probably going to be at the back end of the cards that I get, and that is a starting pitcher, Jackson Rutledge. He has a decent repertoire. 97 four-seamer, 88 slider, 85 changeup, 80 curveball, 99 break on the card too, so those are probably going to be very good. I just feel, again, that there are a lot of other pitchers that are currently in the game that take the place of Jackson Rutledge in the rotation. Now, if you're a Nationals fan, Rutledge fan, definitely one to get. The per nines are good, 104 per nine. Overall, though, I just think that there are other cards that are better than him, and because of that, he'll probably be put towards the back end of the cards that I get as I'm finishing TA2. And that is the team affinities overall that have been announced so far. It is not all of them. There's still more to do, but I think we have a good idea of what cards that we're going to want to target first And I wanted to get this out just to give everybody an idea, just in case you have missed some of these announcements, because they're kind of spread out all over the place, for what cards are going to be available for Team Affinity 2. One other thing that did get teased, like I said at the beginning, was a big collection, is what the tweet reads. It says a big, all in capital letters, big, Legends and Flashback collection is coming. Find out who it is Friday, May 28th at 11:30 a.m. Pacific. And this is the image that they connected with it. So in this image, we have Braves, Yankees, Mets, Rangers. Not quite sure who the bottom two are, as there's 5 images strewn throughout. I've seen some people saying that it could be a player from each team that is shown in this picture, like starting at 1, and then the more you collect, the more that get unlocked. Me personally, this is going to be wild. Me personally, I think that they would have said that if there was more than one big player that was going to be announced. And I think that the capitalization of big is a big telling point, along with Braves, Yankees, Mets, Rangers, all teams Bartolo Colon played for. I don't know who the bottom two are. Don't care. Big sexy Bartolo Colon is going to be the reward. And I'm sticking to it. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about TA2 so far as well. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like on it. Think about subscribing to the channel. More MLB The Show 21 content coming. Once I unlock all the TA2s, I'll probably put together some lists of the best TA2 cards that you can get. I like to test them all first, though, just to give them their fair shake. But that will be coming as well. But again, thank you for stopping by. Greatly appreciate you all, and I will catch you on the next one.